Well, one of the things that happens is that the messages we send our children, some of them are explicit. We make a really, conscious effort to say, like, the way you treat people is important, or something like that. So we give explicit messages all the time, often in the form of lecturing and things like that aren't always the most effective way to do it. But we give a lot of implicit messages too, things that are unspoken. So if a child asks us a question as a parent or as a minister or as a grandparent or whatever role we play in the life of a child, what will happen is if we have discomfort and we don't talk about that piece of it, or we shut something down or we change the subject, we are absolutely, even though we're not saying, I don't want to talk about this or this is not safe to talk about, we're blaring that message. Even though the words aren't saying that, we're really communicating that to them. And they are very perceptive. They pick up on it. I think sometimes kids are going to ask us questions that may stump us, that we're not sure how to respond to, or that we may have some discomfort with. So much better for us to say, you know what, I haven't thought about that, or I haven't thought about how I'm going to answer that. I would like to think about it, and we'll talk about it in a little while. Or even to say, I'm so glad you asked me. I'm a little bit uncomfortable right now because I want to make sure that I'm giving you all the right answers, and I didn't know this question was going to come up today. So to almost just lay it on the table and lean into the discomfort so that the child isn't picking up on the discomfort and then we're faking like the happy clown dance, like, no, you really should talk to me about anything, but we're really communicating that it's uncomfortable. So lay the uncomfortable piece out there as well as answering those questions. Because if we do shut it down or we're uncomfortable with it and don't communicate that, they're going to get the message loud and clear that we are not the ones to come to get that information. So we are responsible for who our children become, but we're not solely responsible for who they become. We rely on friends and teachers and pastors and other family members and our community to also impact who they become, as well as what they bring, this internal life of the mind and the spirit that they bring that's all their own. All of those things should be coming together. But we as parents and grandparents need to really think about how our role is in terms of which pieces of them that we are going to rely on other people to do and other things that we want to be really involved in. For example, I can't play the piano. I had lessons for about 6 months as a kid. I can't teach that to my child. I don't have that capacity. I need to kind of farm that out a little bit. But when it comes to the development of their morality and their values, their spirituality, the way that they treat people, all of those things, I should be heavily involved in all of that. I think sometimes parents rely on the church for things like spiritual formation and spiritual development and even social and emotional development. And that's wonderful as a resource, but it should not be the entire encompassment, because otherwise children will learn to compartmentalize. That's who I am at church. That's what those people are doing. But it doesn't fully become integrated as part of the family and life structure. Even if parents and different siblings have different beliefs and opinions, as long as it's part of kind of what everyone's talking about and coming together, what we're communicating is, this is important. These are the things we give attention to in this family. So when we think about compartmentalizing topics like sexuality or spirituality or science or different things like that, I think that what happens is we somewhat cut off curiosity, and we somewhat cut off the idea of meandering and wandering and wrestling with ideas. And so I think when we have event-based things, that's kind of a great thing as a jumping off point to kind of excite and infuse some attention and energy to that. But really, the idea of welcoming the ideas of science and sexuality or whatever particular topics, maybe there's an emphasis for one period of time on friendships or kind of an anti-bullying kind of thing, or whatever we're really wanting to emphasize. But I think that those should be thought of as ongoing conversations. And I think one of the best ways we can do that is to model curiosity and to model when, we give all these explicit messages when we do these event-based things where we have these kind of units or kind of curriculum even that we're trying to go through. But I think that creating an implicit kind of openness, like, we welcome mystery and we welcome questions and we want to see how things fit together and if and how and why. And the best way we can do that, I think, is to be really intentional about curiosity and be really intentional about being really open and present to whatever questions come up, and then modeling it ourselves. So if a question comes up around science and how that seems in conflict with faith or something like that, to say, oh, that's such an interesting question, let's wrestle with that for a while. And to not just say, yes, that's a topic we should cover, but kind of use our whole selves to kind of that more nonverbal kind of implicit communication of, wow, that's such a great question. So I think one of the most important things some of the most important things we can think about when we're really wanting a child's development to be optimal, and to raise children who are mentally healthy, who have healthy, strong relationships, where those relationships are meaningful to them, but also so that they can impact the world and really invest in other people's lives, is to promote two things: empathy and insight. And I think when we think about our interactions with kids, even in the discipline process, which is really all about teaching and learning and building skills, that if we emphasize understanding ourselves, that insight piece, and then understanding others, empathy, or what my co-author Dan Siegel calls mind sight, seeing your own mind and the minds of others, then what is so powerful about that is the science of how the brain works and how their bodies get in distress and how they can start noticing some of those things, like, you're so mad right now, you're so angry, where do you feel that in your body? And helping them bring awareness to the science that's happening inside of them, what's happening with their bodies, their nervous systems, their emotions, their thoughts, the more logical parts of their left and the more emotional kind of information from their right hemispheres. We can use this idea of this exciting field of science to understand ourselves and to have new insight. Children are so receptive and open to learning about their brains and the science that's happening inside of them as they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that it's so exciting to be able to bring some of those pieces in. And, there's great cartoons, there's great stories, but even just helping shine the light of awareness onto what's happening even in their little nervous systems is a huge part of helping them understand themselves, and then start reading the cues of other people and having empathy for the science in other people, and seeing how they're functioning. And so that insight and empathy based on what we know about the brain and the nervous system, and even what we know about the science of relationships, is really powerful in helping them understand themselves and other people.